Hey dudes and dudettes, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm back with another film review, and much like my last one, if you've not watched, this is also about a movie that I saw on Netflix, and if you browse that site on August 5th, then you more than likely know what movie I'm talking about. But before I do that, let me give you some context on how I know this franchise, because although that's not the main reason for my keen enjoyment of the film, it does lay out the foundation for all of my base of the many past content and ideas that the series has used. But without further ado, let me introduce you to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012. Now, I'll try to keep this short, but include all the fine details as well. So for me, I watched the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles around the same time Avatar was still airing. Or I think the show was either over by then, or it was just doing reruns. But either way, that was my first introduction to the world of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle universe, along with how the dynamic of the turtles worked, like how Leo was a leader, always trying to do the right thing and make sure his brothers are safe. Raph, the hot-headed one who butts heads with all the other turtles, and especially, he's a punch first, ask questions later kind of guy. But he does all this because he feels the need to be strong for his brothers. Donnie, the smart one, uses his tech to help him in battle, and he uses it to make up for what he lacks in pure bronze when it comes to his other brothers, and when it comes to gadgets and gizmos, he's the one doing all the tinkering and fixing among the four. And last but not least, Michelangelo, my favorite turtle of the four, thank you very much. He's the most positive and happy of the bunch, and I often heard that he is the strongest of the four in terms of potential due to his relaxed nature, which lets him pick up on things easier and faster. And when watching the show, I remember many crucial character moments as a child, such as Mikey finding the ooze and he inherently finds out that it has ties with the Krang as they were disguised as those people robots they were fighting. Donnie learning to trust himself and his physical skills, Raph learning that being strong all the time is not good for his family and needs to have more consciousness of others and care, and Leo at the end of the first season where he had to take down a Technodrome, and Leo believed that he might need to die in the process in order for his brothers and April to live on in that moment. And at the time, it was the most compelling character development and character struggle I had ever seen, even at such a young age where you usually just take everything at face value. I can tell that these events are going to stick with the characters for a long time to come. And when comparing the 2012 series to the past, I still think the characters were well explored than they were in the past shows. But I said all that just to say, when I watched the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, all I have to say is that it ripped the show clean off all the other iterations of the Turtles and made it look like nothing in comparison to what this movie had. This Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie is what should have been in theaters instead of that ugly live action one that was made by the same guy that directed Transformers. And this movie showed more maturity, heart, creativity, and passion than any of the past ones ever could. But before I even talk about that, I will be a damn fool if I did not talk about the rise of the TMNT show, because there is so much that they changed, and it just... Now I know that most of you who are watching this video have maybe already seen the show, or at least the first season, but I'll give a quick rundown of the series for comparison to the 2012 one, which I do still believe that show does a good job of mixing the past iterations of the turtle, both the goofy and the serious tone. But I just want to talk about how this show just takes everything, puts it in a blender, and throws it out the window, and it's all for the better in every way possible. So without further ado, let's get into the show. I swear I'll get to the movie, guys, I promise. Now, I only watched season 1 because Netflix was dumb and decided to not have the full series on their streaming service before the movie came out. But since the people behind Rise cared about this show, they only put 2 connections to the original series into their movie. So all stays at peace, and I just really do not want to spoil you. But anyways, let's talk about Rise's interpretation of the Turtles and what makes it so epic. So, huge twist off the bat for the brothers in green is that Raphael's the leader now, and he is also the older brother among the 4 in this version, and his personality is a complete 180 from the Raphael in the 2012 series. In this one, he's like a big spiky teddy bear. He's strong but not afraid to show fear. And for Leo, he's a bit more of a chill dude at first. And I can see what some people were talking about when they said that his personality was too similar to Mikey's in terms of being the chill happy one of the bunch. But I really don't agree with that. And it's just funny enough, I think Leo's character is more comparable to Sonic than anything else. Because he feels like the character that's here for the ride rather than just, well, always trying to be the leader. Now when it comes to Mikey, I don't think they changed him too much from the 2012 show, but what I got from him is that he's the artist of the group, and you can see that in his design with all the stickers and spray paint that he plasters all over his shell, which I think is very cool. And something else really cool I did not know, but it's only because the show doesn't really do it often, is the fact that Mikey is the only one of the four turtles that can go into the shell, which is a pretty neat animation detail, since in all the past shows and movies, all the turtles have the ability to do that. Oh, speaking of neat, turtles are all different species now, and I kind of found it funny how some people got mad over this, even though fundamentally their designs share a similar structure, such as their head, eyes, and hands, and their front shells are basically all the same. But speaking of their designs, let's talk about Donatello, because they made him the best version that all the other shows never could have done. He's the most tech savvy out of all of his variants. And if you guys don't know, I'm a sucker for all things that's sci-fi and technology, and Donnie just hits that with all fronts. And they make him so much better when he gets his mystic tech, but he's still not my favorite turtle. But anyway, now that I've introduced you to the turtles and what makes them so great out of every single version of them, let's take a look at the movie as promised. Alright, credit where credit is due off the bat. The tone of this movie feels spot on, and it's a natural progression of how the show ended. Our heroes may be all relaxed and carefree, but just like Shredder was to Baron Jackson, there's always going to be a bigger threat. But let's not worry about that. Instead, I want to talk about the premise of this movie, that it's set up with Leo being the leader at the end of the show. Now, as I said before, when I talk about Leo being the leader, I'm mainly speaking in terms of the 2012 series and vaguely about those past early 2000 series where Leo was a leader to begin with. And all I really have to say is that the show seems to make Leo sort of a counter to Raph, but at the same time makes him a half of the same whole. And it's very interesting to say the least, since you have Leo being the leader and trying to help his brothers be the best they can, while at the same time, when it all comes down to it, you really have Raphael doing the same thing, but with tough love. And because you know deep down he has a heart of gold, but since these past versions of Raph always treat him like the angry one, he's usually the one to poke fun at Donnie and Mikey for being the most standout of the four, and butt heads with Leo most of the time because, well, he's really mad that he's not the leader. And this is another thing that the Rise movie does better than all of the shows that came before it, and it's showing that Leo is not perfect, and him becoming the leader would eventually get to his head. Although combat-wise, it does make sense to have Leo become the leader because he has the ability to think on the fly, unlike Raph and Donnie. But you could argue that Mikey could be the leader then, but I still think that he's a better helper, but still capable of doing his own thing. But sorry, anyways, sorry for getting off track. So what I mean by this is that it is good to see Leo have his flaws and overcome them as the movie goes on. Good, great, got it. But what makes this special is that we kind of see him become an asshole at the start of the movie, but he is all chill about it as the movie goes on. After Raph gets captured, we see that same energy, except it's a bit more justified because Leo has something to actually get mad over. And what makes this so interesting is that we know this is not why Splinter chose him to be the leader, and he chose him to be the leader because he's the most in tune with all the other turtles, while at the same time we can see that he's his own person. But even with all this juicy character development, that is not the main reason why I wanted to review this movie. The true main reason I wanted to not just review this movie, but make my longest scripted video I have ever made is because of the villain, the Krang. Now, I don't even know where to start with these guys, but if I had to pick one place to start, I think it would be their foreshadowing in the show. Because wow, this is the first time where we see the Krang plotline and the Shredder plotline perfectly intertwined. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, in the Rise universe, the Shredder armor was made by the Krang, and this is shown by the way it functions more or less like a weapon rather than a suit of armor, because it's able to regenerate, morph into blades, and become a titan that towers over everything. And it's not just the fact that it took over 8 people with mystic powers to take it down, and now we can see the creators of the armor in the movie, you know the Turtles will be able to defeat them. And the movie itself knows that, because in the end, they don't defeat the Krang, they just steal them away. But enough chit chat. Let's get into what they really do. Like for starters, we know that they're physically able to beat the Turtles' asses into the dirt. Unlike the 2012 series where they just treat the Krang like a stormtrooper threat, where they're easy to kill and they're only really a challenge when there are too many in number. And while the Rise universe shows that there were many Krang before, the fact that the Turtles can't even handle 3 is insane, and it really shows that they're a force to be feared, and I love it. I could go on and say more, but we will be here for an hour, so I'm going to skip to the end and say, just go watch it. It's the best thing on Netflix in a long time, and I'm glad I watched it. If you're not watching it, what are you doing? It's a 10 out of 10. Also, as a bonus for sticking around the video as long as you did, I would like to give my theory on the possibility that there are 2 Leos, like physically 2 Leos at the end of the movie. Let me explain why. So in the beginning of the movie, Michelangelo makes a time gateway portal so Casey goes back to the past. But when Casey talks to Michelangelo, Casey only tells him that he made a time portal. So it would make sense that Mikey ended up doing the same thing to save Leo towards the end of the movie. So the idea is that they did save the real Leo. They saved the one that was trapped in there for a while. But when Leo just entered the portal, that's the one that got trapped. Now then again, they could introduce something saying that there's a difference in how time works in the other dimension, but I highly doubt that's how it works since we do see Leo's bruises and such. So maybe just that split second difference between two Leos, one that's ended up getting saved, the real one, the current one, and the one that's still trapped in that trading dimension. I don't know, I think it'd be pretty interesting for the people behind Rise to make. But anyways, that's been my video. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, you know what to do. Also type in the comments what you also liked about the movie, because this is the best thing I've seen on Netflix in a long time. And I don't go on there often to look for some good stuff. Also, now that I'm done with this video, I want to talk about a little bit more about Sonic and his new trailers. What do you guys think about him? Feel free to talk about it in the comments and such. Anyways, this has been my video, and goodbye.